You sure you don't want to go over that?
So they were making an announcement.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Ed, who's the library super user.
Hello, Ed. Hello.
And these are our wonderful comic book creators who have things next door to sell to you and want to share with you all kinds of great stuff about their work. Do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Harris King. I do a series called The Crime Busters that I wrote and drew the first 4 issues, and for issue 5 we've got an artist working on it. I do Kickstarter for Halloween. It's basically like Scooby-Doo meets Cthulhu.
That's a very good description of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of Scooby-Doo elements. It's a group of college students that investigate supernatural mysteries in the 1950s. It's just, sometimes they're actually supernatural, unlike Scooby-Doo. It's always a guy who wrote them. So, I've been doing that for 3 years, and I've almost got issue 5 out, and then I have another series called Cthulhu versus Uncle Sam, which takes place in World War II, and yeah, so.
Cthulhu, where did that name come from, Cthulhu?
It's from Lovecraft, so yeah, H.P. Lovecraft is it's a big monster from another dimension.
Okay. And why do you focus on the 40s and 50s?
So I'm a big fan of the comics of the time. So in Crime Busters, one of my main characters, called Crime Buster, was a character in the 1940s and 1950s. He had a series that ran for 117 issues. So when I was reading those, I was like, I wish that series had continued. And then I realized that the character's in the public domain, so I can continue the series. So it's kind of, that part is sort of just for my own entertainment, but I've picked up on certain like continuity story elements from his series in the 40s and 50s. That's why it's set in the 50s, because it basically starts right where the original series left off. You don't need to have read any of that stuff, but for me, that's part of the fun, is bringing these characters back to life that nobody's really been using for a long time.
Right, because that's a really specific time period. Are you planning on progressing that character into?
It progresses, yeah, slowly. Like I started in the fall of '56 with them, and they're juniors in college, and the series is going to run past their graduation. Basically, it's going to end at the end of 1957, actually into '58, summer '58. And I have stories planned beyond that, bring them into the 60s, but I'm not sure I'm going to live long enough to get that far.
Well, I mean, it's comic books, it's fantasy. You can carry it through however you want.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to bring them forward in time as they get older.
yeah, because now today's millennials just so into here and now. And to go back, I mean, even see Captain America from the 60s and 70s in the movies, it's only because we grew up during that time frame. That's why I was interested in why you went so far back. Are you a history buff, or you just?
Yeah, I'm a history buff. It's just it's part of the fun for me. Is to do that. So when I try and write stories that I want to read, and hopefully I can find other people that read them that also want to read them. But yeah, I mean, most of my readers are older. But
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. You apparently get into Lovecraft, and that's why you mentioned it. So I wasn't too familiar with it. I gave up comics when comic books started to go above the $2 range. I was like, holy smoke. They got really expensive as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are close to $10 now.
I know, but at least they're thicker. If you remember back in the day, they called them giant comic books, and they were like double the amount of pages, like 64 pages or something.
Yeah.
But they got really expensive. But you guys' art is really amazing. I mean, what you guys do, and just the storytelling, like you said, your wife. I mean, really enthused about the whole thing and how she presents the issues. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure. I don't want to take up all the time though.
No, they're probably wondering like, hey, let's hurry up. So we'll be back. Nope.
Well, good morning. My name is Christopher Paniccia. I am both a writer and an illustrator, and I kind of come to you from a different perspective because, I mean, I grew up making my own comics, but then when I went into the military, I actually found out that one of my cousins worked for Marvel, and he's a senior editor there. So he would actually send me stories, and he would tell me, listen, Chris, I need you to look at these stories. I need you to edit this, because he knew I was a writer. And so I would, I would take the storyboard and I would work on the storyboard, and I would send it back to him. So over the years, I've come to know a lot of these characters and these storylines. And, somebody actually just came to me and said that, you're an author and you're an illustrator. And I was telling him, I've worked on actually some of the X-Men stuff, and I got a chance to collaborate on Logan. And he says, what's your name? Who are you? And I tried to explain to them that when you're working on comics today, you have a cast of thousands. If you're working with the big boys, and literally nobody knows your name. When I first started, they would invite us to New York, and we would meet with people, and we would sit in an old room. The storyboard would be up there, and we'd discuss it. We'd discuss the story and put it all together. But that was maybe 10 or 12 people. But now you have no idea who's writing what, who's putting this together, who's editing it. And even if you look in the comics, half of the people that actually work on the comics don't get any credit for the work that they do. And I've actually talked to my buddy Tim about this, because you see all these artists, which are great, that are getting all this attention because they created a cover, but the rest of the team, nobody knows who we are. We've helped put this comic together, but the person who did the cover actually gets all the accolades and becomes famous. Right. Which is quite interesting. And not that we write or do this for fame and fortune, because we don't. We do this because we love it. We love the characters. We love to do what we do. And so I kind of come to you from a different kind of perspective as a writer, even though I am an illustrator and I do the comic characters, but just kind of working on the storyboard and kind of behind the scenes, where nobody actually gets to see what I do.
So did you feel it was kind of difficult, since you saw the different aspects of comic book writing? Did you say, this is too much, I'm not getting a whole view of what's going on other than what I have to contribute? Did you feel like you had to go out on your own?
It's definitely changed quite a bit, because we used to get paid by page, and now if I do a storyline, I get paid basically nothing to do that. And like my buddy Mark McKenna, I was talking to him at another Comic-Con. He does concept, he does ink, and he was telling me what he gets paid per page now, and it's nothing. And he's a highly accomplished comic writer and illustrator in the business, and they pay him next to nothing to do this now. And yeah, so what I did is I actually have kind of gone and just become an indie author and an indie illustrator and just do my own stuff. So I've got a fantasy series that's based on ancient aliens right now, and then I have a sci-fi trilogy that's been dubbed the modern day Frankenstein. And then of course I do my illustrations as well.
That's pretty amazing. So you study a lot of history in regards to the ancient aliens?
I do. I can't even tell you how much research I did for this series of books.
So how do you feel about Bigfoot and likeness?
Well,
Is that something you're going to expand into?
Well, honestly, I can't speak to that because I am definitely a research-based person. I'm going to kind of talk about that. I'm going to do a writer's workshop after this, and we're going to kind of talk about the process. So I'm really a research-based person. The librarians in here would love me because I'm a bookworm, and I want to find as much information as I can before I present it in a story, even if it is a fantasy story.
I like the fact that you do keep it to fantasy, because you said you're a veteran, and a lot of times people try to reach into the now and present that. And it's like, if you see the storylines of comic books now, it's always the end of the world. Never the small issues, it's always the end of the world.
Well, my approach is very much that, because you see fantasy today and it's post-apocalyptic.
Right.
So you have no idea how these characters ended up being there. You're just kind of dropped in a post-apocalyptic world. Well, my series takes you through the beginning of the process up to the precipice. And then, are we going to be able to save ourselves, or are we going to go into that post-apocalyptic world? So I approach it a different way, and my fantasy series takes place now versus where many fantasy series take place in, far off time, or like, pre-time, based on their world building.
So you would say your comic books are based on a political, cultural aspect from here and now?
Well, my novels are. The comic stuff that I do is, like I said, it's still freelance and still based on what other writers and other people are putting together.
That's outstanding.
Me?
Yes, you.
Tim Jones, and we met not too long ago upstairs. So I do the comic strip Sour Grapes, and it's self-syndicated in newspapers across the country, and it's been around for a while, and I'm happy to do it and make people laugh. So hopefully they'll laugh.
Do you see yourself as an extension of Gary Larson, or do you see a difference between you and him?
Gary Larson, there's a big difference between he and I. His humor is very like it's a one shot. So in single panels, which is what he does, is basically a caption for what's going on in that picture. So anybody could erase that caption and put something else in there, you know what I mean? So they'll have caption contests that you might see every now and then. But what he does is it's his writing, so he'll put something in there that really fits it, and it's really hysterical because it goes along with what's going in there. What I do is a gag comic strip, so it's more like a Garfield Peanuts type of stuff. So you have mine's a 3-panel, so it's a premise and then setup and then punchline kind of formula. So, and I got quirky characters like I told you. I got Aesop, he's a miserable flying dog, and it's called Sour Grapes, so that pretty much tells you everything you need to know. I'm working on getting nationally syndicated with a big syndicate, and I hope that that happens real soon. But I can't stand it anymore.
What papers are you in?
I'm sorry?
What papers are you in?
Well, I'm in, I'm in papers in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and California.
It's a lot.
So I'm working on a couple right now.
So you're missing the middle.
I'm missing the middle, I know, we're gonna get up
And
north.
more.
It's funny the way people are around the country, and I do everything myself. I pick up the phone and get myself in there, so get a lot of jerks, and you get people that want to talk to you, and everybody has, a reason why they don't want to take you. It's not that they don't want to, either they don't have space, or they don't have a budget, or whatever. We just don't do comics in that paper, which I'm like, why?
The comics, I think, sell the paper.
Exactly. Comics, obituaries, and crosswords in that order. So it's not easy, just to get the editors to answer their phones. I try not to send emails because they get like thousands of emails. A lot of them go to spam and that, so I'd rather have a conversation. And I think they appreciate that too. It's better to give a sales pitch that way. And by the way, I say this a lot. When I send when I call, or when I do send an email, very rarely, I'll never tell them, and so far I've never told them what the comic strip's about, like ever. I just say I have a comic strip called Sour Grapes. It's in so many papers across the country. I tell them what my fee is, and if you're interested, and that's it. And it has to stand on its own. So far it has. It's just amazing. Nobody really cares. As long as it's funny, you know. They read them if it's funny, if it makes them laugh, then they want it, you know what I mean? Because they know it's going to make other people laugh. So, I mean, I don't like to criticize and stuff like that, but I've seen a lot of crap, too. So it's kind of like, I try not to make crap. So, so far so good. I mean, you know, I'm pretty humble about it. You know, I'm not the greatest artist in the world, but it's a whole product of what I do. It may not, you know, the artwork I'm told is good. I don't think so, but you know, the writing carries the artwork, which is the rule. Basically, good writing carries bad artwork, not the other way around. But when all is said and done, you've got everything. Like I told you, I write it, I draw it, I sell it, I manage it. You know, everything. I do everything. So hopefully someday I can just push that off and do that. And I love going to the shows too, because I meet a lot of people that's amazing. Wherever I go, read it, or at least heard of it. So that's a lot of fun. So.
You ever consider other medias? Because you know newspapers are just, everything's going digital, newspapers are struggling to stay. How about going to graphic t-shirts, which are popular, or coffee mugs, put your stuff on?
I do have t-shirts that I've done. I just didn't bring it with me today. But I have t-shirts that have, you know, Aesop and stuff is saying. So one of the t-shirts I have, he says, I may be miserable, but I'm good at it. That's pretty much his attitude. And so yeah, I don't want it to look like a sour grapes bake sale in my table, but yeah, it's endless.
Is sour grapes going to get to a point? I've never read your sour grapes, but is it going to get to a point where it becomes anticlimactic? Is that going to change his personality, or are you going to try to introduce some other concept or someone else in your comics to advance?
I'll never take the focus off of Aesop, and the change. If you read Garfield from the 70s to now, it's the same guy.
Right.
You know, he's lazy and likes lasagna. That's Aesop. I mean, it's Garfield. So, and the same with Peanuts was a little different because Schultz kept introducing new characters, and I think, and as much as I love Schultz and that I'm influenced by him. He's got a lot of characters, so there's always, you know, this week it'll be Snoopy strips, this week it'll be Lucy and Linus, and then Charlie Brown another week and stuff like that. But I may add a character or two over the next in the future and stuff, but not too much. You know, I don't want to overload everybody. So it's the strips about Aesop.
So we have a couple more minutes. Let's make sure you get some time.
Hi, Joe Medeiros. I was a Saturday morning cartoon kid, so that really kind of influenced me in my adult life. But before I decided I wanted to be an artist, Todd McFarlane hit the comic book industry, and it just amazed me. Because he just kind of stood out from everybody else. And although, you know, I could mimic his style, it was complicated. And I just kind of reverted back to the classic cartoon, Looney Tune kind of feel. And I found Gru from Sergio Aragonés, and it was just, that kind of just launched me into wanting to be a comic artist. And so I started just drawing characters, not having any kind of direction or anything. And then back in, I think it was 2013-ish, I kind of bought into a comic book shop in my area, and they wanted to like kind of redo their branding. So as my kids were growing up, I used to draw this duck character. I used to just call him Space Duck because it was a duck in like kind of a space outfit. And so the name of the comic book store is Rubber Chicken Comics. So I just kind of took off his duck bill, I gave him a chicken beak, and kind of just changed his colorings a little bit, and then Ace Chicken, Space Chicken was created. So from there, we kind of started throwing around some ideas for, a comic. I put one out, but at the time, I still kind of hadn't found my style. And that was kind of a time where my life started becoming turbulent. I started getting frustrated, and to sit and do a comic book for me, because my attention span is like all over the place, was a little difficult. So I kind of went to, like Tim, the comic strip, and I did 4 panels, you're in, you're out, done. Get in, tell the joke, get out, move on, have a nice day. So I created, at the time, I called it Jack, but then I found out there was a comic already called Jack, so I was like, I gotta come up with a new name. And also being a huge Peanuts fan, back in the day, in the strips, they always used to scream out, it's Sydney of the Bush. And I was like, that's kind of cool. So I launched Sydney of the Bush as my comic strip, which is based off of technically me buying into this comic shop, but in the comic strip, it's this little rabbit called Jack who buys into a record store, and it's the people that kind of hang out at the record store, and that's really, it kind of mimics my life. So I go back and I look at some of the old strips and I go, oh yeah, I remember that happened. Oh yeah, I remember that happening. But I do it kind of in a slapsticky, comical kind of way. And then that's really where I settled into kind of what people kind of look at it and go, oh yeah, that's Joe's stuff and Joe's style. So then I kind of just took that and put it into Ace and made that more of a Looney Tunes slapstick kind of space opera. We just relaunched a new book earlier this year, which I loved. And so now I've also been working on this pirate story because I'm fascinated by pirates. I don't know what it is about them, I just think they're awesome. So there again, it's going to be a slapstick kind of pirate adventure where the captain is a bumbling idiot and his first mate is really the guy that saves the day, but the captain, of course, gets all the credit. And, so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
It's really cool that it's coming from your life, your personal life. Do any of y'all feel that your writing's coming from your personal life?
Definitely, absolutely. And like I said, when we get into the writing workshop, that's one of the things I'm going to talk about is write what you know.
I wanted to ask a question. So you both work in longer form, and you're both doing shorter. You do 3-panel, you do 4-panel. Is there a real difference between 3-panel and 4-panel? Is that an industry thing, or is it just what you chose that you like better yourself?
I think it's personal preference.
Yeah.
I need that extra panel to tell my joke. I feel,
I'm too lazy to do it. That's why I don't do it. I like the way mine looks. I have what's called a ghost panel in the middle. I don't draw the border. So you have two squares, and in the middle it's by itself. So that's basically, it's easier for me to, it depends. You can stretch out a joke, obviously, with 4 panels, but you can have a panel that says nothing, and it's called a beat. So everything's a beat with jokes and stuff like that. So I'm able to do it in 3, and I'm used to 3. And you can fill up the panel. You don't have too much writing and stuff in the panel because it's like an overworded resume. Nobody cares. But toward my life. So I mean that's why I do it. It depends. Whatever's easier for you. Whatever works.
So I really want to thank you guys for this. I know our time for this first panel is up, and our second roster of creators is coming in. I wanted to introduce you. This is another one of our library super users. This is Joe, and you also do comics. So I figured, I don't know if you've met any of these guys, but I'm going to bring this here.